Our next game is Master of Magic, which was nominated by GB Mento on Twitter. Developed by Simtex, is that correct? Published by Microprose for MS-DOS. Its first release date that I could find was September 1994, although who knows how accurate that is.
That's the accepted one. People seem to agree that that's when it came out.
Tell me about this game, somebody who played it.
I'm happy to talk about it.
Let's get... I'll do what I can, but Cal's probably going to be our major expert for this one.
It's probably like most commonly summarized as sort of civilization mixed with like a fantasy sort of game. Like you basically have different territories that like different cities that you make. And then you build units, you build more cities, you try and capture ground, you try and kill all the other people, and then you win. Like, that's it. There's some minor diplomacy. The catch is you play as wizards. That's why it's Master of Magic. So it's all sort of, you get magic spells that take up the space instead of your civilization evolving. Like in Civilization, you just get spells. So you get spells that make your units more powerful, or spells that, I don't know, enchant roads, or do all this sort of crap. And it's incredibly complicated to the extent that when it came out, this game was just like unplayable garbage, which is very, very typical of a PC game that was like super difficult and complicated. Like not difficult to make.
The gold box games, you know, the Dungeons and Dragons games of the day, or even like Daggerfall or something like that.
Right? Yeah. Like anytime one of these games came out, it was like, wow, it's gonna be amazing, and then it would be like, wow, it's amazingly buggy and you can barely play it.
There are so many of those PC games that no one remembers because they just end up being buggy messes.
There was definitely a lot of bugs to the extent that, you know, no one in their right mind would play an old version. They did patch this game several times to version 1.31, I think is the last official version, and there's a couple of fan patches that you can get if you really want. I don't know how many game breakers there were, but the AI was really, really bad in version 1.0, so it was kind of like you didn't have to play very hard to win.
I think there were definitely some ways to exploit sort of the game's own inherent workings. Like, I don't know exactly how it works, but, like, if you know how to play alchemy just right, you can just kind of feed gold and mana on this, like, never-ending loop that just keeps increasing both of them to ridiculous degrees, and then you're just set for the rest of the game. You're never going to lose at anything again.
Does the GOG version still include that?
The GOG version is 1.31. I don't believe they even let you download an earlier version. So yeah, they don't have the fan patches on GOG. You'd have to get those if you really wanted. But yeah, this is the kind of game that's ridiculously, like, it's crushing itself under its own weight, because what happens is you have the capacity to, this is an example, you can get a character that has regeneration abilities, and then you can make them undead, and then they'll be able to and undead units can't regenerate their health, so they normally just die. But if they have regeneration, you have an incredibly powerful unit who's immune to a whole bunch of things, who also regenerates health, and it's
that's the same kind of loop that Magic the Gathering games can get into, but it's in a video game.
It has so many they put so many little knobs and switches in the game's code that it's like, if you flick enough of them in the right way, everything just kind of goes crazy, and you can build roads on water even though you're not supposed to. You can cheat to do that. You can enchant units to build things in weird orders. You don't necessarily pick up on this very quickly, but it's all there. It's like this incredibly complicated thing. So what you do is, when you start the game, you pick a wizard. You can build your own wizard from a bunch of different, like, cool graphic like portraits, which are really nice. And then you can pick from a bunch of spells, spell books that dictate spells you get. Yes?
I should note, by the way, this game has a dragon guy in it, and for that it gets 10 free ranks automatically.
Yeah, and one of the wizards is named Lopan, so someone on the development team had to be a John Carpenter fan. Also, Horace is the biggest goddamn dork. He looks like he should be, like, the lead character in a 70s musical about Jesus or something like that. He's just...
He's a great character. I like Horace. He looks great.
I don't know if you insist.
A couple of the characters were also references to Record of Lotus War. I don't know if I pronounced Lotus right, but yeah, they've got anime references in there with one of them's named Kali, who looks exactly like Kala from Lotus War, And there's a guy called Torren who looks exactly like Wagnard, which is a terrible name for a wizard, but
Nard.
yeah. So I mean, they had like a lot of cultural pop influences on their wizard portraits, which look really great. And like this game, it's a 4X game. I don't know if I really went over that adequately, but it's a 4X. If you understand what a 4X game is, it's one of those where you play as wizards.
I want to say the best known would probably be XCOM, and this game does share, I think, some familiar points with XCOM, but I don't know. Would you say it's more complex than that?
It's one of those games. It's complex in certain ways. The combat is kind of less complex because it's just two armies just kind of meet on a field and then you just kind of send them against each other. If you played Sword of the Samurai, it's kind of like that.
I do want to say I kind of like the same combat system. It's not just mashing one unit into another like in Civ. It's actually kind of its own separate screen where you can actually affect the battle with spells and such, and I really appreciate that. Yeah,
they've built a lot of there's put a lot of effort into the combat system. It can still be kind of cheated out, but like you've got crazy things like you can have invisible units, so you can have units that are invisible and then you need to cast a spell to make them visible, or else you won't see them until they're actually attacking you. Right beside.
I'll be honest, I couldn't really get into the actual combat itself. I usually just set it to auto, usually after casting like a elemental spell or whatever, but I'm not a big fan of most PC RPG combat in general anyway, so this was a little more original than stuff at times, just not my thing for the most part.
It really depends how dry you like your combats, I guess. Like, you know,
not dry at all.
Civilization is very, it's very simple, very basic. Things just knock against each other. This game, it's a little dry. It takes a little long to do a single combat, but it's not as overwhelmingly complicated as some of the more complicated strategy games out there, which I think is nice. Like I think it hits a decent balance between the two.
Well, that's fair. But you do, from what I understand, have to be very patient to do well in this game. In fact, you should basically just not interact with anyone at all for the first 100 turns and just build up your resources.
Now, that actually brings me to a weird point. I don't know if I was doing something wrong. I might have, maybe because I was playing the easiest difficulty to get myself used to the game. I never met another opponent, and I was sure I had set it to 4 opponents, so I don't know what's up.
Bob has hit one of the game's known bugs. The game has 2 different planes of gameplay existence, which is kind of cool. There's Arcanus, which is the basic human world with normal stuff, and then there's Myra, which is where a bunch of really fantasy characters live, like dragon people and I forgot the rest of them, but there's 5 fantasy races that live there.
It's basically the Upside Down for those of you who have seen Stranger Things on Netflix.com.
And I hope we're getting paid for that.
No, I just really like that show. Sorry, carry on.
And so you actually can shift between the 2 planes, which means there's actually 2 whole different areas to sort of control and overtake. I think they're mirrored from each other, so they're kind of the same. They occupy the same space mostly, but not always. It's kind of slight overlap. Anyway, if you play on one of the very, very easy difficulties, and you pick the dragon wizard, whose name I've briefly forgotten, the AI cannot pick cannot pick the character you have picked. And he's the only one that starts on Myra. So if you play on easy, the AI will only use other pre-made wizards, which means no other wizard can physically be on Myra. So you basically...
Myra is the weird alien plane, right?
Yes. So basically you set the game to not let you.
I went over this as Tenga, and I don't think I was there, because the water was blue.
No, you're there. The land is different.
I could swear the water was purple. That shows how much I've been in Myra. I'm sorry.
It's a purple... Myra is purpley blue water with kind of brownish land, I think, or grayish land. And the normal human world is green and blue.
They do look different.
You were on Myra. I had a look at your save file. You were on Myra.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, I mean, do you have any questions about this, Xerxes? Because...
One or both hemispheres of my brain just shut down during this.
Mine too.
Welcome to strategy.
What makes
games.
this okay? So, as far as strategy games go for this period, like, what makes this special? What makes this different? Is it just that much more complicated, or is it?
It's not that much more complicated because it's not overwhelmingly more complicated than Civilization or Master of Orion. It's made by the same people that made Master of Orion. It was kind of the follow-up in a lot of ways to Master of Orion for them. So I guess you could say people were really enthusiastic for this game when it was coming out because, Master of Orion was huge. I mean, what really makes it different is I think this was one of the first, if not very close to the first, sort of Civilization-type game that was set in a fantasy universe. Because it's, obviously Civilization is quite grounded and realistic,
I mean, Nuke Gandhi, there's nothing fantastic about that. It's just
also
it is fantastic.
One thing that's interesting that the Clack-On, the bug race from Master of Orion are in this game.
Oh yeah, and also the evil wizard Arjak looks a lot like whatever the spy race was. What are those called? The Dutch?
Darlocks?
The Darlocks, yes, exactly. So, yeah, I almost wanted to compare Master of Magic directly to Master of Orion, but I feel that might be a bit of a fallacy since, one takes place in space and the other's on...
It's a fair comparison. It's a follow-up in a lot of ways.
But, I mean, is like Master of Magic's like battles? Are they more intricate or more...
The battles are definitely more intricate, because your wizard has the ability to cast spells, and so do some of your hero characters. You get hero characters who gain levels, which is a kind of another difference that's very not in a lot of other strategy games at the time.
They're kind of in Masters of Orion, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so they can cast spells, you can cast spells, you research spells, and so you have all this, you can cast, general magic spells or unit summoning spells or stuff directly within combat, so you get kind of like this... You can focus on sort of more researching magic, or you can sort of focus more on building military sort of stuff, and you can focus on destruction magic or enchantment magic, depending on what wizard you pick or what you build. So there's a lot of options within the game to sort of hash out how you play. Yeah. And that is kind of similar to Master of Orion, in that Master of Orion, every race, just like in Master of Magic, has they have racial traits and they have unique things that they build. So it kind of has that as well, but in a fantasy setting and more like Civilization, because obviously Master of Orion, you're just moving between planets rather than a sort of world map.
What I appreciate Go ahead.
No, that's it.
What I appreciate, there's two distinct ways to win, much like Civ. You can kind of focus more on diplomacy and making sure people don't kill you and save up for the Spell of Mastery, which is the equivalent of getting the space victory in Civ. Or you could just be boring, just kill everybody.
And a cool thing is when you take over a city in this game, you don't take it over with your people. You capture it and get other people's characters. So you basically enslave other races as you play.
Right, like
really
Masters
cool.
of Orion.
Yeah, so it's got that same sort of functionality to it, which is nice. I mean,
I'm thinking based on everything I've heard.
Wait. Can I just get one more thing? I will say that while Master of Orion wasn't necessarily my favorite game, I do feel that it had more things going for it simultaneously than Master of Magic. I mean, Master of Magic itself, it can do a lot of complex things, but it kind of ultimately ends up as being a war game by the end, and I think I was a little misled. I was hoping there'd be a way to just win through being a peaceful agricultural farmer and just get really rich and move off the planet. But I don't know, maybe I'm expecting too much from it. I probably have my criticism off base.
I am totally inept at having an opinion about this game because first of all, it's not my type of game, and I haven't played it, so I'm going to be inept here.
So let's. I'm thinking NFL Blitz territory. I don't know.
The only other game we can really compare this to is Advance Wars 2, and that's kind of handles the same thing in a different way.
And it's much more poppy.
Too different. Yeah.
It's much more poppy. I mean, the level of complexity isn't nearly comparable.
Since it's kind of it's a 4X game, though. You can compare it to games that aren't on the list and just think how much does it do?
I was saying that it looks a lot like Warcraft 1 mixed with something like Romance of the Three Kingdoms.
Like, as a game, it is often considered not quite. It's very close to unparalleled in its at its time, obviously, because it's like there's not huge amounts of other games that were this complicated. I have seen some really negative reviews from the time as well, which was really amusing. Like, a guy was incredibly angry about this game. This is a very period game. Like, this, they wouldn't make this exact game now. It's kind of got the complicated bits are in like weird directions, and it's really kind of difficult to learn. And it's like you try and play it, and you can't make sense of it without kind of digging through the manual and a wiki and all this stuff to try and get the game, which is why a lot of people...
XCOM is like that too. The original XCOM's very much like that.
Yeah, well, like there's some Master of Magic kind of type games that have since come out, like Fallen Enchantress and I think Endless Legends to an extent, where these games have taken the formula, even though it's a different game, and kind of modernized it in a way that you can sort of get it a lot better, like modern XCOM, which is much easier to sort of grasp than XCOM original, even though it also loses a bit in that translation, I think.
So how about below Clash of Demon Head?
I think it's way better than that.
You know, I would also agree. Like, I'm somewhat familiar with the genre. I played Civ 5 and Stellaris, to name a couple games, and I mean, I'm not great at it. There's a lot of things I don't get, but it's pretty polished for the time period. I like how helpful it is to the information it gives you, so I'd say, for example, the genre, it should do pretty okay.
I mean, as far as what you guys are saying about it, and you're better experts than I am, Donkey Kong Country 3 is not the best platformer in the world. So, like, it's not even in the same conversation in terms of quality of its own thing. So it's definitely above Donkey Kong Country 3.
I was going to say, I don't know if this sounds a little arbitrary, but between Tapper and Zookeeper, both are old-timey arcade games, I feel that, yeah, there is really a lot of nuance and interest in the content in the game, but it is also kind of a hard sell for most modern audiences, but I don't want to discredit the sort of game it is either, so...
Cal, can you live with that?
I would prefer to see it below Snatcher. That's where I would put it.
Between Snatcher and G.I. Joe.
I wouldn't agree to put it that high, and it sounds like nobody else would either. So
I like G.I. Joe better.
Right now.
You know what? I would live with it.
I have no preference either way, to be honest. I mean, I'm on the borderline where I'm not as much of a hater as Xerxes or Vise is, but at the same time,
hater. I just don't see what.
I mean, you're a hater. You don't see it. You hate it.
I mean, I don't. These are also
either because like I'm gonna give it a fair shake and say that this is more your type of game than it is mine. But if I have any sort of weighing opinion, I'm gonna say that I don't like it for a lot of reasons that a lot of other people won't like it. Not that that's a qualification on the best games of all time, but it should be, because you're thinking about enjoyment.
There's also an element to this, which is like most people haven't played this game, and you do kind of want to promote games that are interesting that most people haven't played.
Sure.
We don't want to just be like throwing, softballs the whole time. Like, what's the point of having a contentious and completely scientific ranking system if you're not going to encourage people to try stuff that they wouldn't normally try? And that's what makes me feel like, well, there could be a lot of people out there who'd love this game, but they'd never try it unless somebody told them, hey, you should try Master of Magic.
Sure.
You know what? I would definitely say, like, really, if you liked Master of Orion, or you liked any of these sort of like 4X games, and you hadn't played this game, I'd be like, well, you should go do that, because you might really like it.
Okay,
yeah,
so between Tapper and Zookeeper, or below Zookeeper and above Pulseman?
Wait, hang on. I am not the biggest fan of these types of games, but I'm going to acquiesce to Cal's own suggestion of between Snatcher and G.I. Joe, because I really somehow just think it deserves more respect, and Xerxes, you just made a good case of bumping it up a couple notches, I feel. So
I'll agree with Tango.
Outvoted.
Can I have a quick thought here? The only kind of game that I remotely kind of like this, would you even say is kind of like it? It may be at least concept is Star Control 2. Is there any I know it doesn't have the action element, but it sure has diplomacy and the gaining of friends and things like that.
Well, Star Control 2 it has a similar feel because it came from a similar period of games.
That's what I'm thinking.
But Star Control 2 would definitely be higher. Like, Star Control 2 is a very, very impressive thing. But,
I'm just saying I get the kind of vibe from it. It's not in exactly the same wheelhouse, but it's getting there, at least. But we can all agree that Star Control 2 is going to be up high, but... Yeah.
So, Master of Magic, above G.I. Joe and below Snatcher?
Yeah, sure. I don't see why not.
I can live with it.
Weird thing, man. Okay.
You're just like sweating like, I can't believe this is happening.
So it is. Yeah, let's move on.
All right.